I know. See, it becomes interesting because as I keep telling in all of my classes, all these gives multiple perspectives and get you to understand various aspects of it. So if you look at it, well, it's a marathon class, and if you look at it, well, you're making a huge network across the country and the world. So one has to look at it from all sides and then figure out what one needs to do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what do you do, Vinod?
I work in tech.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. You are an IT guy.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Right,
Into
right.
software.
Okay. No, it's very important for engineering and science guys. When I say guys, guys and girls, to also get a humanities perspective, because I myself have a science engineering background. I moved
Mhm.
into humanities,
Mhm.
and at the end of the day, the story is about human being.
Yeah. Yeah. Of
So,
course.
so understanding humanities and about the human beings, and most of us miss this out. We focus so much on the various aspects and forget the fact the story is about the human being.
Absolutely. In fact, some of the sessions earlier today, like the ones by Professor Alam,
Huh.
I think those were very interesting. I mean,
Okay.
especially about the f- the outward view from India, right? I mean, our foreign relations and things like that. I think it's
Okay.
been
Okay. Okay.
interesting topic.
So again, as I said, all these perspectives add to the overall understanding of the thing.
Yeah.
And academics and scholarship is not about good, bad, right, wrong, true, false. It's about those perspectives, and always the truth or the actuality falls in between various perspectives. So you must see this. There is a very interesting series that I am watching, which is called Dark Matter. Have you
Okay.
heard? Have you heard about it?
I think so.
Okay,
Let me
it's
check.
it's a very interesting series. I think it's a mini series, and it's about those. It's about multiverse. That there are multiple universes existing concurrently, and how a human being perceives it. So it's a very interesting sci-fi series. If you get hold of it, you'll find it interesting if you're a tech guy.
Yeah, I was just looking it up.
Okay. No, no, always. I always encourage, in fact, in my classes also, I mean, physical classes, I encourage my students to take out their mobiles and keep looking at things, because that way you are parallelly adding value.
Yeah, yeah.
Hi, Ujjwal.
Hello, sir.
Okay. Okay, I think we can start. Anshika is also there. Hi, Anshika. Okay. Hi, Anshika.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. So let's start. It's already 5:04. Hang on. So today we do MDI 003, which is Global Diaspora Case Studies, and we are talking about Asian diasporas. And so, what again, reiterate, you can stop me at any moment of time to, add something that you know, or to share something that you think is interesting, which could be also unrelated to this particular core topic, but something similar in terms of adding value. And you can even stop me, interrupt me at any moment of time to even ask a question or to clarify something. So remember, I always say that this is an experiential class where all you people have done something and have certain amount of experiences, so that it adds value. So we are talking about Unit 23, East Asian Diasporas. So in fact, the Asian region not only constitutes the largest diasporic population, it's the most diverse diasporas in terms of historical trajectory. And always, for example, in MDI 1, Unit 1, we talked about migration and diasporas. And how diaspora is not an automatic formation after migration. There is a reason why these diasporas happen. And this also is based on time, it's based on location, it's based on a whole lot of factors. Immigration, geographical spread, economic and political strength, socio-cultural diversity, race, class, ethnicity, religion, gender. 60% of the world's population live in Asia, according to the World Population Review 2024. So this is a background on Asian. Now, you also need to understand in the current context, in the West, for example, Asian Indians are not categorized as Asians. Indians are South Asians. So they are not in the Asian category. Indians are pretty much not categorized for some reason, and this has happened over historic, whatever reasons why this happened. Historically, also Asians have been object of racist and nativist U.S. legislation. We will see that there has been laws which have been passed which were anti-Asian by the U.S. Asian diasporas are often orientalized as exotic and submissive. Indians, for example, were always treated as model minorities. For some reason, Indian diasporas itself themselves projected themselves as a model minority. And somewhere down the line, there is this expectation that a diaspora should act in a particular way. More often than not, and it's not a particular community or a particular region aspect, but a lot of places, the diversity quotient is not still understood. And we had talked about it yesterday, how everybody in a way is an immigrant, because everybody has moved throughout generations, throughout history, and yet there is some stereotypes which get made in times of peace and economic security, vilified. Hang on, there is a chat which is skin color is different of South Asian and East Asian. Uh, Anshika, it could be because of various reasons. Possibly, it could be, the way the eye composition, the skin color. See, again, all these stereotypes get formed over a particular way. For example, the depiction of mental illness in, let's say, Bollywood is extremely filmy. How it became filmy, or the depiction of lesbians and gays or LGBTQ in media, is very stereotypical. And more often than not, most of us get socialized out of media. So how this happened, can be done research. In fact, there would be some research articles, somebody would have done this, but it's quite possible it might be because of sir, what is the concept of model migration, model minority? So Ujjwal, it is something like this. There is this narrative which gets said that when you migrate, so for example, when you have people migrate, forget about international migration, look at it domestically. When Indians from a rural area migrate into cities, the city folk expect certain norms out of these rural people. Now, obviously, the socio-cultural upbringing of a person from a rural area is way different from the socio-cultural upbringing from a urban point of view. So, if you and you will hear it a lot of time, these people are like that. In a lot of urban areas, you will hear this sentence or this phrase: "These people are like that," or "They should behave like that." Now, this is what a model minority or a model immigrant or a model diaspora is. You are expected to behave in a particular way, and more often that particular way is differential. That those are the hosts and these are the immigrants, and immigrants should behave like an immigrant and should not integrate into a host. So there are various kinds of narratives which get built. How they get built is is made on different parameters. So others are of model minorities, Inevitably, you need to understand whenever immigration happens, the immigrant is always a minority, and he or she is expected to behave in a particular way. Okay, got it. So, for example, in times of vilified in times of war, for example, recently when the pandemic happened, the COVID pandemic happened, Asians, especially Chinese. Now, again, the Western construct does not may not distinguish between Japanese and Chinese or Korean or Filipino or Indian. They might look at particular skin color and determine they are Asian, and everybody's typecast. For example, in the Western scheme of things, people cannot distinguish between Arabs and Sikhs. So there are stereotypical ways that the way we stereotype in media in terms of Western and Indian, the way we stereotype. And remember, in media, stereotypes are done because it's easy for a diverse, non-homogeneous section of people to understand concepts. That's why stereotypes are done. And they are followed as a threat. So let's look at this particular unit, which is objective is East. So here we are doing this unit is about East Asian diaspora. So the Asia is divided into East Asia and South Asia. And role of East Asian diaspora in spreading cultural civilization, linguistics, economic contribution made by East. So these are the objectives of this unit. Again, I repeat, a lot of the presentation is taken out of self-learning, your SLM. In case you do not have the SLM, remember a lot of these SLMs are available on eGyan Kosh as soft copies, as PDF. You can download them in case you have not got a hard copy, and you receive a hard copy later. A lot of it is from the SLM. I have added stuff where I thought explanations need to be done, or to elaborate a particular point. Unit focuses on 5 East Asian countries: China, Korea, Philippines, Japan, and Vietnam. There are other East Asian countries. There is Cambodia, there is Taiwan. China does not recognize Taiwan, whereas in the geopolitical scheme of things, US recognizes Taiwan. There is a whole lot of things. Indonesia is East Asian, Malaysia is East Asian, but the unit has looked at these 5. Diaspora benefit their home economy like any other diaspora. Their presence is a global platform where United Nations, WTO helps these countries strengthen their presence globally. And again, as I said, diaspora and understanding diaspora, diaspora affairs, and understanding the importance of diaspora is a very recent phenomena, especially with the rise of social media and the 24/7 real-time connectivity back home. Every country is waking up to the power of diaspora. So what is East Asia? East Asia is a geographical connotation, sub-region of Asian continent: China, Korea, Philippines, Japan, Vietnam, and others. Widely diverse in terms of culture, people, ethnicity, language, food habits. Largest overseas population settled on permanent and temporary basis. And also understand the fact, as we talked about yesterday, in spite of the fact that diaspora studies is much more recent, people have been migrating all the time. So, formations had been happening, have been happening, are happening, will continue to happen, because whenever people of a similar culture or socio-economic background or something, which could be language, which could be religion, get together for a particular purpose, a diasporic formation happens. Large-scale immigration from East took place after the end of Second World War. Again, there was traders were always there, active before that. Immigration en masse from East Asia to Americas resulted from political instability, economic downfall after, and that's where once you study history of each country, you will realize that each country goes through this era of stability and chaos. During the 60s and 70s, the Vietnam War resulted in massive number of political refugees to US, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, Japan, and China. And again, I reiterate what I spoke yesterday: to understand what is happening today in any country or in the world or a community, one needs to go back into history and see what actually happened and how whatever happened in history is replicating. The whole Middle East, or the Jews and the Palestinian problem, is a historical problem, and more often than not you will see the aftermath of colonization resulted in a lot of problem. For example, the problem between India and Pakistan, or India and China, with respect to boundary, has been created by the colonization by the British. The way they divided, and remember, nations came in much later. Okay, let's start with Chinese diaspora. Refers to anyone who personally or whose ancestors migrated from China to a foreign country, now consider himself, herself a citizen or permanent resident of host country. Lie in 2004, also known as overseas Chinese, is the third largest diaspora spread worldwide, as per international migration stock 2019. Again, I try and give the name of the author or the organization and the dates. Some of the dates are old. There has been new research which has happened, but we are going by the SLM. So we will go by the SLM unless I'm able to find some information and corroborate and put the author out there. Rural urban migration, wealth polarization, expansion of gap between affluent and poor, critical variations. And as we studied yesterday in terms of migration, all these things, there are multiple factors which lead to migration. It is in 2010, an estimated 43 million Chinese origin people live in 148 countries. It's a 2016 research. Before Cultural Revolution in China in 50s, many Chinese emigrated within Asia. Reforms of 70, Chinese people began to migrate to North America, Europe, and Australia. And you will see a lot of nations have kind of a similar trajectory. Those trajectories could be based on economic consideration, it could be based on political instability, it could be based on many other factors. It could be based on an opportunity which has arisen. These industrial countries sought labor, especially unskilled, who could be employed on low salaries, and the Chinese migrant. So, and one of the factors that remember we talked about the push and pull factors. There is a pull factor in terms of employment. There's a push factor in terms of poverty, in terms of political instability, in terms of climate change. Present generationally is primarily engaged in economic, information technology sector. In fact, today a large part of the technology development in the West is because of the Indian and Chinese diaspora. Four main destinations, namely US, Canada, Australia, and New Zealand. Poston and Wong in 2016. The earlier records of Chinese immigrants who settled on foreign lands are found between Tang Dynasty, 7th century, and Ming Dynasty, 16th century. So, which reiterates, which validates whatever I've been saying, that we might be studying things today, but people have been on the move since history, since the origin of modern human beings. These early migrants were mainly Buddhist immigrants who visited Japan, India, and Indonesia for pilgrimage. So there was pilgrimage which used to happen. There were traders. There were, these people who would move about, who would document things. If you remember, there were these Chinese, travelers who came to India, wrote a detailed account of what India was, the Buddhism. Religion becomes a very important way for migration. That's right. Priyant, absolutely right. What we studied in our 10th class history, there were all these, and it's not just Chinese. There were Arab travelers. They were, travelers from Central Asia. If you study, in fact, in India itself, if you study the various castes, Ibn Battuta I think was from Morocco or somewhere, North Africa. You're absolutely right, Priyant. Your history is good. There was constantly a movement of people, and always there would have been more, such people who would love traveling. What we call travel influencers today. So these were the earliest traveler influencer in the absence of social media. And religion was a very important way, in terms of Christianity, in terms of Islam, in terms of Buddhism. These people used to visit. Marco Polo as well. Absolutely, Anshika. So, overall settlement can be divided into four phases. Overseas Chinese went to West Asia for trading purpose along the ancient Silk Route. Second phase, between 16th and 19th century, traders, artisans, miners paid overseas visit, limited within Asia, Philippines, Java, Sumatra, Thailand, and Malaya. That also constitutes Eastern Asia, Thailand, and Java, Sumatra. Uh, this was the second phase. Then there was a third phase between 1910 and 60. Industrial revolution played an essential role, included Australia, New Zealand, South Pacific Islands, Mauritius, Seychelles, Madagascar, and Americas. There are a lot of movies which show these Chinese workers working on the railroads in the US. And then there was a fourth phase post 60s. The global human movement was primarily influenced by global connectivity under globalization umbrella. The new city centers, especially developed societies, became new destinations. And remember what we talked about yesterday, the perceived benefit of migrating. More often than not, individuals or collectives look at the perceived benefit of moving. Each action is taken out of a perception that movement will lead to something better. That better itself is a very subjective phenomena. Economic engagement, Chinese community overseas has invested in China. Others, one difference between possibly Indian and Chinese diaspora is the Chinese diaspora contributed not only just the remittance, but in technology. Developing an overseas business community from China in strategically essential areas like Africa and Asia. So China was possibly, engaging its diaspora more effectively than India, or we have no comparison particularly, but more often than not, the Indian diasporas contributed in terms of remittance, whereas the Chinese not only contributed in terms of remittance, but technology. That also, the difference also is possibly because of the fact that Chinese state is a single party system. It is, whereas India is a multi-party democracy. There are challenges into a multi-party democracy. A single party state is much, there are different challenges in a single party state. There are some advantages, there are some disadvantages, and so on and so forth. So, for example, I picked up this Melbourne Asia review, Chinese diaspora engagement policy and its powerful effect outside its borders. So, this has been written by Associate Professor Yan Tan. Whenever I present something of that like this, you can concurrently open another window and look at this particular magazine or link and bookmark it to be able to read later. Also, you need to understand everything does not need to be read. Some things need to be skimmed through to get an understanding. There are some aspects, and that's what I keep saying. Note down keywords which you can quickly, read further about, or have it in your memory, subconscious memory, to be able to bring it if you're answering a question or otherwise. So there is an initiative of the Asia Institute. This is an ISSN magazine. According to strategic plan issued by the State Council of China 2015, called Made in China 2025, building an advanced manufacturing industry would allow China. So again, each country has woken up to the to the aspect that there is a large overseas population, a large overseas diaspora, and these diasporas can contribute to the nation state in multiple ways. Political and economic influence, and the larger game plan is to boost political and economic influence. Cultural engagement, 2018 Communist Party Central called on all diasporas to help the great rejuvenation of Chinese nation, build a community with shared future. You will feel that this is what we hear many times. Okay. Anshika, see again, we need to understand it. When we talk about Nehru's policy, or we look at Indian policy, or we look at Chinese policy, we need to understand the context and the timing of it. We need to understand, and this is a matter, this particular thing has been talked about a lot. There has been some discussion in terms of Nehru, and let's not say Nehru, it was the India's policy at that time. Nehru was the prime minister, so obviously he was leading the Indian government. There when the Indian state was formed in 47, India had its unique problem. Colonization had taken out a lot of resources. In fact, I am dwelling it a little because of getting another perspective. India had a lot of problems in terms of colonization, 200 years of colonization. Colonization had drained it of all its resources. India is extremely diverse in terms of language, in terms of religion, in terms of culture. There are tribals, there are non-tribals. In tribal itself, India has 22 recognized languages, and there are multiple dialects of it. And on top of that, a an underdeveloped country with a large population below poverty line. So how do you, and the second aspect of India was as a nation, when India got independent, it was comprised of multiple princely states. There were areas which were under Portuguese, there was area under French. Now to integrate all these, get things on and move on, was a very difficult thing. Also at that time, remember when initially the government had formed, they also had this policy of allowing the tribals to let as they are. Subsequently, the Indian state understood the fact that possibly the tribals in India needed to be integrated. Similarly, at that moment of time, and it's not just India, every country in the world thought, in fact, when you go through diasporas or various diasporas, you will come across that a whole lot of countries thought that their diasporas were actually enemies to leave the country. So it was not about Nehru or Indian state, or it was a question of the context and the time. And subsequently, for example, you will study about the South American diasporas or the Central American the Mexico used to consider its diasporas as anti-national. Or you will come across a whole lot of diasporas who the politicians of the or the state used to consider them as anti-nationals. Anshika? So that's another perspective one needs to understand. Let's take this forward, and as you are going through multiple units and in various forms, you will see that anytime or every time we have one perspective, there are obviously multiple perspectives to it. And as I keep repeating, and I will keep reiterating, each perspective is it's of a particular person. There is no right, wrong, correct, wrong, true, false. One has to look at various perspectives and say, oh, this is also another way one could think about things. So I had met some diplomats from El Salvador. El Salvador is in Central America. It's a very small country. They told me the same thing. We always used to consider our diasporas that we do not want to engage with them. But now with social media, The diasporas are very much interested in connecting with the homeland, and the state is interested in connecting with them. Scope of China's current engagement policy, which goes beyond the most domestic economic development, extends to transnational political, social, diplomatic, and cultural domains. Today, with social media and internet and faster means of transportation, anything which is within the national boundary reaches out to outside the national boundary in real time. So the diasporas are as much invested in homeland as the homeland are invested in the diasporas, because there is a real time connectivity which is happening, and that is why one has to be very careful in the realm of politics, in the realm of economics, in the realm of anything, that anything which happen nationally will affect things globally. And we are seeing that because of social media. Two fundamental trends or challenges in China's diaspora engagement policies: rise of recruiting highly skilled talent, replacing an earlier practice of attracting foreign business. So we remember India is also trying to do that, the comeback policy. Africa is doing that. There is this major push from African countries, or the continent, to get Africans back. So again, as I said, as you go through multiple units, you will be able to piece together a complete picture. The move from tapping diaspora's capital investment for economic development to emphasizing diaspora as promoting soft power, which is what other countries are also doing. See, as I said, it is time stamped. So as now, with internet, with social media, with global connectivity, with the faster means of transportation, all countries understand their diasporas to be soft power. So there was this paper from Bloomberg University of published in Bloomberg University of Pennsylvania, engaging diasporas via charm offensive: analysis of Chinese diaspora engagement policy in the Z era, by Shengdeng, which is University of Pennsylvania. Focuses on indigenizing international communication, improve China's national image, jumpstarting immigration reforms to win minds. And again, if you see, when we look at diaspora engagement, it is not just one aspect of diaspora engagement. There are layers of engagement, and that engagement has to be followed by policy, because at the end of the day, an engagement or a dialogue in the absence of any policy will not bring you the benefits. Strengthening education exchanges to shape, for example, think about the fact the Alliance Francaise is a great way for France to look at soft power in various developing countries, or the Max Muller Bhavan. These has been their Voice of America, BBC. These have always been used by these countries as soft powers. Okay, so let's look at the Korean diaspora. Modern history of Korean diaspora began in 1910, forced annexation of an undivided Korea by Japan after the Russian-Japan War. Again, as I said, this is history. So once we understand history, we understand how the migration happened. Koreans were taken to Japan as indentured laborers, employed as laborers in Japan by imperial government, mass immigration to Central Asia and China. So political instability always is a precursor. If you look at the current state, political instability in Syria led to mass immigration of Syrians to Europe, to Turkey. Korean War between 50 and 53 further contributed to instability. Immigration from Korean Peninsula to other parts of the world became more popular. Ally of United States, South Korean people benefit from the dissolution of quota system for Asians in the Immigration Act of 65. New policy helped Koreans move to US. In fact, that's how colonization also was a two-way street in terms of people moving. As per Republic of Korean government, an estimated 7.5 million of Korean diaspora is spread across 193 countries, are settled in United States, followed by China and Japan. As per 2017's remittance inflow to South Korea accounted for $6,332 million. Indians are remitting almost 87 billion. So, you can see the scale. The Korean government uses diaspora population to improve countries' economic competitiveness, trades more with countries having a significant ethnic Korean population. International initiatives such as World Korean Economic Convention, overseas Korean trades. When we look at Indian diaspora, you will see similar things happening. The only thing I always keep saying is, with India, one has to look at the huge population and the enormous diversity to understand the nature of the problem. 2017, more than 600 Korean small and medium-sized business linked agreements with Korean entrepreneurs living abroad to boost countries' low-cost labor from ethnic Koreans in China and Central Asia. Import low-cost labor from ethnic Koreans in China and Central Asia. So, comeback policy. So I picked up this news item from Reuters. As workforce shrinks, Korea struggles to embrace immigration. And we also will look at the fact that if you look at news items, when in the Western countries, as the birth rate falls, workforce diminishes, immigration is the natural choice. These countries cannot survive without immigration. And yet, interestingly, there is a large political rhetoric against immigration. So, for example, K-pop, short for Korean pop, becomes a great soft power. In fact, I was listening yesterday, the Squid Games 2 has become the largest watched Netflix series. Korean movies are doing so well. For example, India's Bollywood is a major revenue earner. In fact, today, for example, Indian Bollywood movies is specifically made for Indian diaspora. So K-pop, Gangnam Style refers to the lifestyle associated with Gangnam region of Seoul, where people are trendy, hip, and exclude a certain supposed class. All these are soft powers, soft ways, or soft power diplomacy. Third, Filipino diaspora. During Spanish colonization, local population emigrated to Spain, Mexico, and parts of Southeast Asia, especially Indonesia. Then there was the rule of United States, outflow to US, reached 5.4 million in 2020. Now there is in a separate unit, all these migration effects are also mentioned as to how does this diaspora or these migration, for example, Filipino women are world over in caregiving. Now, when these single women migrate, what happens? Do they take their families along? Do the families stay back? What is the outcome of this migration? What is the outcome on the children? What is the outcome on the families? What is the outcome on their mental health? There are units on that. Overseas Filipino diasporas have more women emigration. That's because of the fact Filipino women are more into caregiving industry. So you'll find Filipino women in most of the nations in the caregiving industry, which, for example, there is in fact there is a video on YouTube, I think from the 60s, where these women from Kerala emigrated to Germany to be in the nursing profession. It's a beautiful documentary how these young women from Kerala villages emigrated to Germany to join the nursing profession and give caregiving in Germany, because after the World War II, Germany was short of caregivers. The Commission of Filipinos Overseas reported 6 ratio of immigrated 10.7, 10 is to 7 for women and men. So a large number of women have immigrated. Women are involved in the profession of nursing, business, farmers, manager, but predominantly it's nursing and caregiving. As per World Bank report, receives 34 billion USD, ranked fourth globally after India, China, and Mexico. India has the largest diaspora population and has the largest remittances received. Inflow of remittances contribute to 10% of Philippines GDP. Now, that's another thing that, in some nations, the amount of remittances is in double figures of the GDP. Philippine diaspora has had similar influence on Philippine cuisines and arts. Think about the diversity which all these migration are causing. Overseas Filipinos have introduced and popularized Philippine food, culinary traditions in their host countries, Filipino restaurants, food trucks, Philippine arts and culture are spread through diasporic communities, Filipino musicians, dancers, artists gaining recognition. So that's about Filipinos. I think I have a here. An article in the New York Times, Filipino food finds a place in the American mainstream. Here are the best Filipino restaurants in the United States. So New York Times has listed out a restaurant. So if you see, each country is competing with other in terms of spreading their culture, engaging with their diasporas, making sure that the diaspora contribute to the home countries, and so on and so forth. Okay, so let's look at the Japanese diaspora, popularly known as Nikkei people. Nikkei borrowed from Japanese word Nikkijin, referring to people of Japanese ancestry who are living overseas. During Meiji period, we are talking about the 19th century. Japanese immigrated to Philippines and America, significant immigration. In fact, when the World War II happened, the Japanese people in the US who were US citizens were all imprisoned. They were looked at with suspicion when Japan attacked the Pearl Harbor. So that is where the earlier slide of being vilified, looked at as traitors. Significant immigration to territories of Empire of Japan during the period of Japanese colony. Japan had this colonial expansion 1875 to 45. Most of these immigrants repatriated to Japan after 45. Now, then another thing which happens is if these migrants come back, are they, back home, or are they treated with suspicion back home again? In fact, you will see in a lot of units when there's a talk of migrants coming back, these people cannot even settle back home because they are looked at with suspicion back home. Is a Japanese Gosei, fifth generation, is a Japanese diasporic term used in countries, particularly North America and South America, to specify the great-great-grandchildren of Japanese immigrant. These children of Issei or Nissei, Sensei are third generation, and their offsprings are Yonsei. So there is this individual, names which have been given, or nomenclature which has been given by the diaspora to their, offspring. The earliest organized group of Japanese immigrants settled in Mexico in 1897. Fourth largest population of Japanese and descendants of Japanese immigrants lived in United States, Canada, Brazil, and Peru. Now you wonder why Peru? So if you go and Google how did the Japanese population settle in Peru, or they settled in Central America, you will get another story. In Europe, Britain is estimated to host the largest Japanese immigrants. In Asia, the Japanese diaspora is spread across, involved in engineering, academics, and labor works. India, for example, Maruti, which came from Suzuki, Honda, all these are Japanese. Toyota, these are all Japanese. So Japan was always associated with high tech. Okay, let's look at the Vietnamese diaspora, referred to as overseas Vietnamese or Viet Q. In the local Vietnamese language, translates as Vietnamese travelers living overseas. Unlike China or Japan, Vietnam does not have a long history of overseas emigration. Vietnam was a French colony. France had largest Vietnamese population out of Vietnam. So remember, there was the Vietnam War. Not in the Vietnam War, the U.S. was actively involved. There's a concept called the boat people. In fact, one of the boat people who emigrated to the United States won an Oscar in one of the movies. So there is a active Vietnamese diaspora now in terms of assimilation. Vietnamese people in France are thought to be a huge success. While fully incorporating in Phil culture, French Viet are widely regarded as having preserved their cultural traditions, mainly in Paris and its surrounding. 20-year-long war between North and South Korea forced many people to escape to various parts of the world, including US. So one thing that you are also getting out of this is political instability, and war is a large cause of migration. Neighboring China, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, and Korea. As far as Vietnamese government, 5.353 lakh Vietnamese diaspora live in 130 countries, a very small considering to a country like India or China. Contributed to economic development. 2022, overseas Vietnamese had invested in 362 projects. Investment is $1.6 billion, $87 billion of India. Always that gives you a comparison. Received US dollar 71 billion remittances from 2015 to 2019. Are a mix of East Asian cultures, a reflection of Chinese and Korean cultures, and obviously each country affects its neighboring countries. There is movement between people, and today with modern media and social media and global connectivity, each culture affects every other culture in a great way. So, for example, Ao Dai. So you see the fashions. Vietnamese traditional clothing now most commonly worn by women, but can also be worn by men. Tight-fitting silk tunic worn over trousers. Now this is you will see a lot of Western heroines wearing this kind of dress. Audai. I don't know how to pronounce it. I think I'm pronouncing it literally as Audai. Okay, somebody wrote something. Okay. Right. Okay. Let's sum it up. East Asia is a geographical connotation referring to a sub-region of Asian covering China, South Korea. Sub-region is widely diverse in terms of culture, people, ethnicity. We looked at China, Korea, Philippines, Japanese, and Vietnamese diaspora benefit from home economy. Then I picked up some scholarly articles. So if you go into Taylor and Francis, there is a diaspora, indigenous and minority education, studies of migration, integration, equity and cultural survival. It's a journal, and there is an article, and this article is available in a PDF format on Google. Introduction to the special issue, Asian Diaspora Theorizing Defying Racism, Reimagining Alternate Nows. So this has been written by Ming Fang He. In all likelihood, he's a Chinese. I suppose. I haven't checked. You can please check it up. So this article is available online. If you give these keywords, if you give this particular keywords, you'll be able to get this article. It's a Taylor and Francis online article. And as I said, it's volume 18, 2024. So it's a pretty recent article. As I said, a lot of these scholarly articles you can just skim through, which will allow you to give you keywords. For example, Sahu's research is the first paragraph to it, which I took and introduced in the first slide about Asian diaspora. Then there is John Hopkins Sheridan Libraries, which has an East Asian Studies, where general resources on diaspora and migration. So you can bookmark this also and see if you can get. I have not cross-checked it, but you can bookmark this site and see what is available. If there's something interesting, you can share it among yourselves. So there is John Hopkins Sheridan Libraries. And the third resource that I came across was Cambridge University Press. They have Asian Studies, an international journal of Asian Studies, histories of modern migration in East Asia, studies of the first half of 20th century. International Journal of Asian Studies. So you can go into the Cambridge University Press. A whole lot of articles may be behind paywalls. You may not be able to get it, but each article, at least they will put an abstract which you can skim through. As I said, these are important to understand, and then you can request somebody who can get the article and read it. All articles need not be completely read. Some articles just need to be skimmed through to get a larger understanding of the unit, to be enable you to possibly write the assignment, write your examination, and to get a larger understanding in case you want to go further into this subject. So these are three resources that I came across. I thought I'll share it with you. And there are some other references and suggested readings. Sons of Yellow Emperor. So that is where possibly the East Asians and South Asians, in terms of the color of skin, is how the narrative has gone. Vietnamese American Diaspora, Philanthropy to Vietnam, Siddle M. In fact, there are two books which I also came across. Your House Will Pay, Conflicting Complication Tensions Between Korean American and Black Community in Los Angeles. All You Can Ever Know, Search for Identity that Comes from Being Born into a Culture and Placed into Another. In fact, there is this article in one of the newspapers, New Yorker or New York Times, where there is this Chinese girl who follows her parents and is born in Canada and comes to US, or is born in China and then comes to Canada and come to US, and how she feels out of place. Remember, identity is a very complex thing. And in fact, in a couple of minutes, you'll be reading about identity and you will understand how negotiating identity becomes a challenge, especially for immigrants. Who are you is a question, or who am I is the question which a lot of immigrants face. And then there is this expectation of from the host community of being a model minority. You're not supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that, and you are trying to grapple with the new culture. And then there is racism and there is all kinds of things, and then in that you are trying to hold on to an identity. So there are these books also, All You Can Ever Know. There will be other books you can always check out online, and share it within your groups. Okay, I think I've reached the end. Let me switch on my video. Any questions? Hi guys. Any questions or anything that you want to add? So one thing also which becomes a very interesting fact is that when you are a part of this WhatsApp group, obviously there are names and numbers which are shared. You can talk to individuals. Everything need not be done in a group. Once you are able to figure out what is the core competency of a particular individual, you can also reach out to that particular individual, and these are great ways to create a network to get a larger understanding of the subject.
So we define Indian diaspora as Asian diaspora as well.
Any questions, guys, or anything that you wish to share, like to add? There was this Korean movie called the which was an Oscar winner movie. I keep forgetting about how this guy comes and stays in their in this couple's house. The infestation or something to that effect. Again, an Oscar winning movie, very well made movie, Korean movie. Okay, so in case there are no questions, have a wonderful week ahead, and we'll meet next Saturday in this marathon, teaching session. Saturday, Sunday, we will take the second unit in MDI 001, and we'll take Unit 24 in MDI 003. Unit 24 is about South Asians, and Unit 2 in MDI 001 is about diaspora, is about transnationalism and globalization. Have a wonderful Takeoff is a Malayalam movie that talks about a nurse diaspora, a true incident. Yes, Vinod. So this nurse diaspora, as I said, on YouTube, if you search with keywords called nurses in Germany, or nurses who went to Germany, with these keywords, or Keralite nurses who went to Germany, with this keyword, you will come across this beautiful documentary where this 30 odd girls in the age of 16 to 18, I think, from villages in Kerala were taken by through the mediation of the church to Germany. They didn't even know German. The only common characteristics was the religion, and they went out there. It's a beautiful documentary. So if you see it, you'll get a more wonderful idea. Anyway, thank you for the share. Okay, so have a wonderful week ahead, and I'll see you all next Saturday at 5 o'clock. Bye bye, guys.
Thank you, sir. Bye bye, sir.